How you doing, guys? Big Mac Down School here again today, back once again with another episode of my Warhammer 40,000 Conquest series for you. Today we'll be taking a look through the pages of issue 59. Before we get started though, I want to remind you to go and check out the Hobby Corner. Some videos have gone up recently. The Blood Ravens one I remember watching last week, before recording last week's Conquest video, and then just a couple of days after that is there's a battle report gone up there, so definitely check that out. It's mission 2 and 3, I think, if I remember rightly, the tutorial missions from the very start of the Conquest series. So yeah, there's plenty to be learning in those sorts of videos, I think. Definitely worth a watch. Back to the magazine. We get an Inceptor. I'll probably be painting that up as a sergeant. We get 2 Hellblasters and 2 Intercessors. So the Intercessors are the bolt rifle guys, the Hellblasters are the plasma gun guys, and the Inceptor is the jump pack guy with the 2 heavy bolters. Yeah, they're all miniatures from a Sprue in the Dark Imperium box. As always, when I'm talking about one of these sprues, it's a little difficult to work out the price, but you're looking at least $17.50, so you're saving like a tenner. Then, on the front cover, what else does it say? We've got ultramarine reinforcements, which I've just spoken about. Then learn about Grey Knights and explore the Maelstrom. Let's learn about Grey Knights and explore the Maelstrom then. Oh, handy, that on the first page, it's got Grey Knights. It talks about the how the Grey Knights are a secretive chapter of Space Marines, established by the Emperor just towards the end of the Horus Heresy. They are bred to be psychic. Each Grey Knight has some psychic talent, and each Grey Knight is a powerful psyker in their own regard, in their own right. I don't know why I was going to say that. In their own regard, in their own right, each Grey Knight is a powerful psyker. On the tabletop, this is represented by each squad being able to cast psychic powers. So it's not like each Marine can cast their own psychic powers. It's like each squad casts a psychic power, basically. If I remember rightly, I mean, it's been a while since I looked at any Grey Knights rules. The last time I looked would have been 7th edition, I think. Yeah, but back to the magazine. So it talks about the Grey Knights and how they've got a fortress monastery that is on Terra. Towards the end of the Horus Heresy, when the Emperor set up the fortress monastery. I think it was... What's his name? What's that bloke's name? Malcador, the Sigillite of Terra. I think he cast a spell or teleported, using his own psychic ability, teleported the planet of Titan into the warp in order to hide it from, into the warp, into its own reality, or he hid the planet somehow in order to hide it from prying eyes. And then when it re-emerged into the galaxy, when it reappeared in the galaxy, I say the planet Titan, sorry, it's a moon, isn't it? Is it a moon of Saturn or Jupiter? Let me know in the comments below. I'm pretty sure it's either Saturn or Jupiter. I think it's Jupiter, but it's probably Saturn now I've said that. Yeah, so when it reappeared into the galaxy, everyone was like, when it went in, there was like something like 100 Marines and various individuals that basically went on to set up the whole Grey Knights chapter, and they were fully trained and almost battle ready, well, definitely battle ready and everything. So when they re-emerged into the galaxy, they could start fighting the enemies of mankind straight away, and they are particularly talented at targeting demons and warp-born entities. Yeah, so it goes on to the next page to talk a little bit more about Titan. Then it talks about the heraldry of Titan, the Crusader helm, some of the various different things that make the Grey Knights look different to various other chapters. So the Crusader helm is like it's a more old-fashioned type of helmet. It looks like some knightly helmets where they have the is it a mouthpiece? It's a whole face piece, I think, isn't it, that you can slide up, but it's kind of pointed. Just comes above the nose there. It's kind of pointed there, and it looks a lot like that. You know, that's obviously where they've drawn the inspiration from, the miniature designers and the character designers in general. They've drawn the inspiration from old school knights, and that's why I think their armour is like the shining silver that it is as well. Also, they carry a Nemesis Force halberd. They don't all carry that, but that's one of the distinctive weapons of the Grey Knights. They all have force weapons because, again, they're all psychers. So force weapons, they used to have, I don't know what force weapons do actually in the current edition. They probably cause mortal wounds or something like that. But they're like a psyker's power weapon almost. When you activate the force of the force weapon. In 7th edition, they used to have the instant death rule, I think, when you activated a force weapon. But you had to do a psychic test in order to activate those weapons. I'm not exactly sure how they work in 8th edition. I've not touched on psychers really at all, because the only army I've really played with in 8th edition is my orcs. And I've only played with them once as well. I've hardly played any games of 8th edition, because Kill Team came out and I've played a fair few games of that. But it's not like I play regularly anyway. Back to the magazine again. They also have armour etchings, various blessings and stuff etched into their armour. And then the Stormbolter, all Grey Knights, I think it's all Grey Knights. If it's not all, it's almost all Grey Knights, have a Stormbolter attached to their forearm. So rather than hold it, they have it attached to the forearm in order to be able to hold 2 melee weapons, or a double-handed melee weapon like the Force Halberd or a Thunderhammer or something like that. And then there's a Grey Knight showcase over the course of the next 2 pages after that. Some really nicely painted miniatures in there. I've said about Necrons in the past that I am not a fan of silver armies, basically. Typically, when you see Necrons, you just see silver armies. There is a slight preference in leaning towards the Grey Knights, and I think that's partly because of the blue tint you sort of see. So it looks like, you know, shining steel, almost, the armour of Grey Knights. There's a paint that used to be a Forge World paint, now it's in the Citadel range in general, the general Citadel range. It's called Grey Knight Steel, and I bought that, and I've painted up my librarian from the Conquest set, Conquest magazine. I've painted him up as a Deathwatch librarian with an Imperial Fist / Deathwatch librarian, and I've used that Grey Knight Steel, I think it is, on his Deathwatch arm with the Deathwatch shoulder pad on, and it looks really nice. I've also gone over it with a contrast paint to sort of make it look a little bit more bluey, but it looks really nice in my opinion. You'll get to see that in a showcase on the channel in the not too distant future. Back to the magazine again. The Maelstrom. How many times am I going to say back to the magazine? The Maelstrom, so it tells us about the Maelstrom here and how it's a tear in reality. It's an opening in warp space. With the opening of the Great Rift, the Maelstrom has become but one part of a far larger warp tear that spans the Imperium from one side to the other. So it was like one of the few warp rifts in the galaxy until the Great Rift opened, tore the galaxy in two, basically. And it's an area that is... I don't know how to put it really, but there's forces in the area. The forces of the Crimson Slaughter. They're former Space Marines, well, former loyal Space Marines, but during the Badab War they fell to... they became renegades, basically. And they're led by Huron Blackheart, formerly Luft Huron, and they were known as the Astral Claws chapter before that. He rebelled against the Imperium during the conflict known as the Badab War. In the final battle of this war, he suffered terrible injuries, having been struck by a melter blast. His troops, seeing that defeat was certain, bore him away from the battle and fled deep into the Maelstrom. And now, like, almost half of his body has been replaced by mechanical equivalents, and he's got this massive hand, and it's got I think it's got a melter gun in the palm of his hand, basically. So he opens up his hand and shoots at you like that, and it's got these huge claws coming off it. It's almost like the Talon of Horus that you'll see if you have a look at the Abaddon miniature. You'll see it on there. And then on to the next page, we've got Victories of the White Scars, or Victories of the Khan, sorry, which is all about the history of the White Scars from Millennia 30 all the way up to Millennia 41, the time of ending. So it starts with the Great Crusade. The 5th Legion unites with the Primarch Jagatai Khan upon Chogoris, the planet that would become the homeworld of the White Scars. Adopting many of the savage rituals of the land, they quickly establish themselves as masters of reconnaissance. They impress all other legions with the speed and effectiveness of their attacks. Jagatai Khan brings many victories to the Emperor. So It was when they were united with their Primarch, and they were they set up home on the world of Chigoris. They became renowned then for reconnaissance after that. The defensive terror, they were held at bay by the Traitor forces, and there were also there was numerous attempts to try and sway them to the side of the traitors during the heresy, because the Khan was quite kind of an elusive. His opinion wasn't very forthcoming in many situations. He was, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think he was quite. He sort of kept himself to himself, and he didn't always get involved in other Primarchs' business and the squabbles of other Primarchs and stuff like that. So he kind of kept his cards close to his chest. This is the impression I've got from reading up to like book 17 of the Heresy. Anyway, he keeps his cards close to his chest, and so the traitors thought they could tempt him to their side. But eventually, he managed to get through, and at the Siege of Terror. He played a vital role. Him and his legion played a vital role in the Siege of Terror. Then there's the Age of Rebirth, the time of parting, when basically the Khan rides off into the webway chasing Drukhari, Dark Eldar, who were raiding all the worlds in the system that Chigoris is in, which is known as the something sector, the Yasan sector. And yeah, so he rode off into the webway chasing Dark Eldar, but there's like a rumour. I don't know if it's ever been sort of hinted at in novels and in White Scar lore, or in other various lore of the 41st millennium, Warhammer 40,000 universe, that the Dark Eldar have a Primarch held captive, and they're constantly torturing him to get that soul energy that helps keep them alive and sustain them. I don't know if it's Vect, Asdrubael Vect, who is like, he's almost like the king or the emperor of Komora, that is the webway home of the Dark Eldar. And it's potentially what's keeping Vect alive, but also potentially what's keeping Komora or Komora. I always say Komora, but I think it's supposed to be Komora because it sounds like Gomorrah, like Sodom and Gomorrah, all biblical influences coming into the 41st millennium, as is often the case, drawing inspiration from religious stuff. But yeah, so it's keeping Komora united, and because it's in the webway, it could be torn apart at any point. But there's all sorts of seals and. I say it's in the webway, sorry. It's like it's effectively the webway exists within the warp, if I'm interpreting it right. So it could be invaded by warp entities at any time when there's weak spots in the shields, the walls of the webway and of Komora. So yeah, one of the theories is that there's a Primarch there, and one of the theories is basically it's Jagatai Khan, that he's being tortured in order to sustain either Vect or Komora itself, the city itself. Then it goes on to talk more about some deeds and some victories of the Khans, all the way up to the 41st millennium and the time of ending. And alongside a Primarch, I'll just pick that one out. With the Brotherhoods depleted and Yasan subsector overrun by foes, the White Scars began to regroup and plan their counter-attack. It is then that the Indomitus Crusade arrives in the system, delivering the White Scars Primaris brethren to join the fight. With the Brotherhoods reinforced, none can stay their fury. So the Primaris arrive with Rebute Gilliman, and they're thrown in to replenish the ranks of the White Scars, and all goes well after that. White Scars are renowned for riding bikes, but at the minute, Primaris don't have any bike units. So it's going to be definitely interesting to see in the future whether we get Primaris bikes. I think we will, and I imagine there'll be like some kind of a jet bike, basically probably like a massive, just an engine with a few anti-grav plates that you see on the repulsor tank and stuff like that. That's what I think we'll get for the Primaris Marines when they eventually get bikes. On to the next page, we've got how to build Space Marine reinforcements, and it's talking over 4 pages about how to build the 5 models that we got this issue. And then the next page, it's how to paint Space Marine reinforcements. Interestingly, they've set this issue out slightly differently. In previous issues, we've had all the paints displayed on the first page, and it says these are the paints you're going to need. Here, they've got 5 paints, and it's just the base paints, and then they show you how to do the first step, the base paints, on that first page. And then the next page, it's got 2 washes, and it shows you how to what your model should look like once you've applied those washes in the correct areas. And then on the next page, there's no more pictures of paint pots. It just goes to Liberator Gold as a sort of heading, Stormhost Silver, Wild Rider Red. So they're kind of changing it up a bit, maybe to keep things fresh for us, perhaps. Turning over the page, we get a nice looking set of miniatures at the end of it, to be fair. I don't think you can grumble about that too much. They're not amazingly painted, but they're just nice. They've got edge highlights on certain parts of the armour. Edge highlights can be really difficult to do if you're new to painting, or if you've not got a steady hand, much like myself. I've not got a steady hand at all, so edge highlighting can be a bit tricky for me. You might want a dry brush instead of edge highlight, but a really light dry brush, just so the lighter blue catches the edge of the armour if you're painting them as Ultramarines. I won't be there. Imperial Fists, like I've said in previous videos. Tracking a Traitor. So this is the Rules Mission 43. Former Governor of Korvon II, Ludmilla Tark, has been revealed as a traitor to the Imperium. There can be only one punishment for such a crime: death. Ultramarine scouts have located the cult hideout in the city of Kalon and called in their allies to attack the nest of dangerous heretics. So Ludmilla Tark has been sighted, and there's intelligence around that she's there, and she could basically be the key to unlocking the Death Guard's dastardly plans. If they find her, and if they find the information she has, then they could bring down the Death Guard invasion in one fell swoop. Or maybe not. So, onto the next page, it says, Battlefield, this mission uses both of your maps. Place objective markers in the locations shown on the map. Objective markers, you say? Yes, objective markers. On this second to last page, or the inside of the back cover, we get 5 objective markers which represent data slates on which data about the Death Guard's plans can be found. So there's 5 objective markers placed on the map, as it shows here, in sort of the same pattern as you'd see on the 5 side of a dice. In this mission, both players collect victory points at the end of each battle round. To hold an objective, you must have more models than the enemy within 3 inches of it, as we know now. We should know that by now. You will need to keep score as you play. The armies: 10 Chaos Cultists. 3 command points as well for the Death Guard. 10 Chaos Cultists, Lord of Contagion, Biologist Putrefy, Mephitic Blighthauler, 10 Plague Marines, 12 Poxwalkers. That's a lot of miniatures there. That's 1, 2, 3, 32, 33, 34, 35 miniatures for the Death Guard. And the Space Marines again have got 3 command points, 2 Primaris Lieutenants, 10 Intercessors, 5 Hellblasters, 5 Space Marine Scouts, and 3 Inceptors. And that is 25 miniatures altogether. Deployment: both players roll off to deploy. The winner can decide who deploys first. Players then alternate deploying the units, beginning with the player chosen to deploy first. Roll off again to decide who takes the first turn. So instead of alternating deployment, whoever finishes deployment first then chooses who takes the first turn, you're rolling off again to see who takes the first turn, which I think is a better way myself of deciding who takes the first turn. Victory conditions: eliminate an enemy unit, 1 victory point. Each objective held at the end of a battle round, 1 victory point. So by the looks of it, the objectives don't get deactivated at the end of each battle round. So you might hold an objective at the end of battle round 1, and then I might take it off you at the end of battle round 2. You might take it back in battle round 3. So there's a lot of points to be had here in this battle. If a player controls more objectives than their opponent, they score an additional 1 victory point at the end of the battle round. So that 5th objective is vital. That's probably why they're not giving you 6 objectives, they're just giving you 5. So one side can always hold 1 more objective potentially. But you can, of course, deny your opponent from holding an objective. Let's say the Space Marine player sends 5 Intercessors to hold an objective. 5 of them have been wiped out already because the Death Guard shooting is amazing, obviously. So they send 5 Intercessors to hold 1 objective, and you've got a 5-man squad. You can send them to contest that objective. So then neither side holds that objective. Neither side benefits from the victory points. And the game lasts 5 battle rounds, as all of these games have pretty much since more or less the start of Conquest. And then on the inside of the back cover, from issue 61, the war for Korvon II will be decided. Assault on Jorgenhast. New battle map, more terrain, more missions. The fate of Korvon II hangs in the balance. So it talks about mechanised slaughter and how the dockyards, the industrial dockyards, will be fought over in the last battle. It shows us nicely here what the battle map's going to look like once we've got all the terrain on it and everything. I'm sure we'll be using 2 battle maps or potentially even 3 battle maps at times to make the battlefield extra long. It's all very exciting stuff to come in the future. But what's coming in the near future? What's coming next week in issue 60? Death Guard reinforcements! Yes! Very nice. Death Guard reinforcements. We're getting most of a Plague Marine because don't forget, we've saved some bits of a Plague Marine from a previous issue. We should have anyway. Oh, another thing that reminds me, it's just reminded me of something else rather. In this issue, you got the Space Marine reinforcements. You also got 3 more, or I did in my issue anyway, in my copy of the issue. You also got 3 more flight stands. Now, initially, people were saying they didn't have any flight stands when they got the second Inceptor, and they were sort of commenting on my YouTube video saying, where's the flight stand? I didn't get a flight stand. But you should have got 3 flight stands with the first time you got an Inceptor, and then you shouldn't need any more, but I'm guessing they've had a few people complain that they didn't get a flight stand with the second Inceptor, and they've lost the other 2 spare flight stands from the first time they got an Inceptor. So I, in this issue, got 3 flight stands, which is very exciting for me. And then on to issue 61, what are we getting? Imperial objectives sighted! We're getting Imperial objectives. These really nice sort of beacon towers or force field generators they could be. I'm not too sure what they are. I've only seen them before in, I think it was a City Fight box that was released a while ago that was about 65 quid. You got a little bit of city terrain. I think it was City Fight, but it might not have been. But yeah, I've seen them in that before. And we've also got, this isn't your standard box of objectives that you can buy off the Games Workshop website, because we've got this Medicae table with a medical servitor there, but this servitor's on tracks. The servitor in that box you can buy from Games Workshop's website for $22.50 is stationary, much like the Medicae table. And then we get like a communication tower and some crates and stuff. We get like a relic shrine, and then almost like a mini force field generator or something, which a lot of these things are different from what we get in that box from the Games Workshop website. It's interesting because on the original image they showed us, it was all the objectives from that box you can buy from Games Workshop. So they've changed it up a bit. I think that's the first time I recall them changing it up at all. So let's see. I'll let you know. Come back next week. But this is a really rubbish way to end the video. But yeah, come back next week and I'll show you what's going on in next week's issue of Conquest, issue 60. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the battlefield.